Friday at 7 p.m, your weekend sports on Talk Radio Europe with the Friday Sports Bar.
Good evening. You tuned in to Talk Radio Europe and the Friday Night Sports Bar for your live hour of sport every Friday. You're almost welcome this evening. Coming up on the show over the next hour, Andy Murray gears up for the Australian Open with a win in Brisbane, defending his title. A big weekend of football down on the Costa del Sol as Malaga welcome the mighty Barcelona on Sunday night. NFL fans, it's week 2 of the NFL playoffs. The Ravens, the Packers, the Seahawks and the Texans all advanced from last week's wild card games. And it gets a good start in India for England, coming out on top, surprisingly so, in the first one-day international. Just the start that England and Alistair Cook wanted on the subcontinent. All that and plenty more to come over your next hour of sport on Talk Radio Europe. Stay tuned.
Friday Sports Bar with Dom Aldworth. It's the Friday Sports Bar with Dom Aldworth on Talk Radio Europe.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Friday Night Sports Bar here live from the Talk Radio Europe studios. Great to have you all listening on the airwaves, if you are, that is. And a warm welcome to, he's still getting himself ready, Richard Tilsley, my normal partner in crime. Unfortunately, the other one can't join us this Friday. Stuart Joseph, he's gone off back to Amsterdam to go and see his lovely grandchildren that came into this world just before Christmas. And we've got other theories. Well, actually, first and foremost, good evening, Rich. How are you? Oh, hang on, I've got to turn your microphone up first, don't I?
Yeah, it would be better if you
helps.
could turn my
that
mic
helps,
on.
doesn't it? You've got a bit of a bounce in your step, by the way.
What? Second date, Dom.
Well, I was going to ask you about the first one because you had a first date last Sunday.
This is the second one. So
I mean,
instead
of watching a second date with the same person.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was a second date with a different one.
No.
Oh, okay. So all is good in the. Oh, okay, all's good. I thought maybe the first one was a disaster, and you've now gone for a second one with somebody else.
No, same one.
I can't believe it. And you missed the NFL playoffs to go on a date.
Well, I saw them on Saturday night.
Yeah, but they were also on Sunday.
I know.
Couldn't you have had the dates on Monday?
I did see the highlights on Monday, though, of the playoffs.
Well, the highlights are nothing. You should have had your date on Monday.
Is, what's quite interesting, though, is that I think our sort of tips for who was going to win were pretty much split, weren't they?
No, I got 3 out of 4.
No, you got 2 out of 4.
No, the only one that you got was I
got Seattle.
Yeah, was Seattle.
And I got the Ravens.
No, I got all home winners, didn't I?
Yeah, but you didn't go for Seattle.
Yeah, but that's the only one I didn't get.
Yeah, and I got the Bengals wrong. But we were talking about how awesome that Bengals defense is. And if they had an offense to match, I think they would have run away with that.
Oh, I loved it. Well, listen, I watched all the games, and I've made a little slot.
I've also got a bone to pick with you as well.
Well, hang on, I haven't finished picking mine with you, actually, because Stu's obviously not here, and I know he's going to tune in and listen to the show later on this evening. He's actually in the air at the moment, so I hope you have a good weekend, Stu. We have our theories as to why you're going back to Amsterdam. You enjoyed the cold that you returned with so much that you felt it was necessary to go back to those coffee shops. That's what I think.
Yeah, I reckon it's the lure of the wacky backy, to be honest.
The brownie. He likes the brownie, doesn't he?
Well,
I'm sure he does.
Green, brown, I mean, whatever you want there, mate.
Did you put a request in for him to bring one back for you from Amsterdam?
Well, I wouldn't like to say on air because obviously that would be against the law and he would be committing a criminal offence. I wouldn't like to dob
Don't bring him anything back, Stu, please.
We can't encourage any law breaking, Dominic.
So you said you had a bone to pick with me?
Yeah.
What might that be?
Okay. Whilst you were prattling on about those totally inconsequential tennis tournaments that no one has ever heard of and probably about 0.001% of the listeners care about.
Right.
Okay. You ignored the passing of 2 of the greats of cricket. And we did not pay our due respects to either of them. And I am referring, of course, to Tony Greig, who is...
Oh, God, how could we have not... Yeah, but actually was that...
Yeah, exactly. How could you have not made time for this? Okay,
yeah.
And also Christopher Martin Jenkins, the Major, who not only was president...
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Of the MCC. I mean, he edited the Cricketer for many years. He was a stalwart on Test Match Special. And when it came to analysing, I mean, of course, he was very heavily influenced by Jim Swanson, E.W. Swanson. And when it came to analysing exactly what was going on the cricket field, he was an absolute master. Absolute master, and also not a bad amateur cricketer himself as well. Of course, in his I think his son or grandson played for Sussex.
Yeah, he did indeed. I mean, listen, the guy was so knowledgeable. I used to love reading whatever he wrote about cricket, and to hear him speak about it as well was fantastic. And Tony Greig, I mean, you know, Tony Greig, bless him. I mean, the funny thing is, I actually heard an interview. I was watching South Africa playing Australia just before Christmas in Australia, a series that we won, by the way, which I had to mention. And, of course, he was part of that. It was a Channel 9, I think it is, the cricket broadcaster in down under in Australia. And you've got the likes of Tubby Mark Taylor, who's on the panel there. Tom Moody's now part of that panel. You've got Mark Nicholas, England's Mark Nicholas has been part of that for a number of years. Now, Tony Greig was a very important part of that for a number of years. And they'd actually interviewed him away from the ground because he couldn't actually be there because he was due in for an operation literally 2 days after that. And that was actually the last live interview that he conducted. And it was a bit of a shock to everybody because nobody actually knew he had cancer at the time. So it was barely 2 weeks later, 10 days later, that unfortunately he passed away.
But, you know, to a certain extent, because of what happened with World Series cricket, his contribution to English cricket, I think, is perhaps, you know, overlooked somewhat. And certainly for any schoolboy who was starting to play cricket, you know, when in the 1970s, Tony Greig was a huge inspiration. I mean, here was this absolute lion of a man. He was like a sort of like a Greek god, you know, of Corinthian proportions when he strode the wicket and refused to be bowed by the very, very aggressive fast bowling that both Australia and West Indies had at the time, and which was in marked contrast to many of the other England players. I remember seeing the 73 Test match, I think, or 75 Test match, and at Old Trafford, and I remember Ray Illingworth, you know, practically playing his shots at square leg. He was backing away from Lilly. He was so terrified. But Tony Greig, I mean, he strode the wicket and, you know, he said, bring it on. And I think to a certain extent, he, you know, because of what happened with World Series cricket, a lot of, you know, a lot of who the man was really, I think, was, as I say, very much overlooked. And certainly, you know, some of his match-winning feats for England were absolutely phenomenal. I mean, people talk about I think it was the 178 in India in one of his last innings. And we've got a caller on the line, Dominic. Yeah, we're going to try and bring you on here. I'm just playing with the wrong mouse there, actually. It's not something that happens very often to me. We're going to bring you on there. Good evening. You're live on Talk Radio Europe and the Friday Night Sports Bar. Oh, we've lost you. Sorry, listener. Please give us a ring back if you may in the studio. Not too sure what happened there, but give us a ring back. We're waiting for your call. Sorry, Rich. Carry on there. Yeah, and then, of course, you know, he was instrumental in attracting many of the international players to World Series cricket. He was, indeed, you know, and especially at a time with the South Africans as well, because let's not forget he was a very well-travelled man. South Africa, lived in Australia, played cricket for England. Well, Scottish parents, and I think grew up in South Africa and played his cricket at Newlands, I think. Correct, for Western Province. I mean, and also it was a time in South Africa as well, because of apartheid. A lot of our sporting players, rugby players, cricketers, we had two generations of wonderful cricketers that were unable to showcase their talents for their country because of apartheid. And a lot of these guys did go over. Barry Richards was one, played in the World Series. I mean, you had the likes of Clive Rice. Tony Greig was very much the man of the moment for the World Series. We very much claimed him as one of our own, to be honest, Dominic. I mean, I'll grant you, people like who you mentioned, Barry Richards and stuff like that, they were very much South African. But Tony Greig was very much an Englishman. Absolutely, yeah. But, you know, he had been... What he'd learnt in South Africa was a toughness in his... and a mental toughness in his approach to the game. And that was sorely missing, I think, in you know, the amateur-dominated era of English cricket. I mean, his commentary was very much like that as well. I should qualify that last statement, you know, because though obviously the players were professional, I think that the overruling sort of template as to how the game was run from the administrators was very amateurish, and that's, I think, seeped down into many of the players.
Well, I'll tell you what, he's definitely going to be missed, that's for sure. I mean,
great commentator. I love his commentary.
Loved listening to him.
Every time I'm in Australia.
I watch a lot of cricket, as you well know, and even series that don't involve South Africa when Australia are playing down under, and that whole commentary team, and Tony Greig was very much the heartbeat of that commentary team.
Yeah, and I think it was fitting, really, that Shane Warne that said that when he took his hat trick, he couldn't think of any commentator who he would have rather been behind the mic than Tony Greig commentating on that feat.
Rest in peace, Tony Greig. Yeah, definitely will be sorely missed. I'm sure you are, by all your family and all your colleagues as well. And we might as well stay with cricket. And actually, you've led me on to something else there. Shane Warne. Did you see Shane Warne behaving in the T20 Big Bash down under in Australia midweek with Marlon Samuels of West India? Did you see that?
No, but he got a one game ban, didn't he? I read about it, and I just thought it was going to be sort of handbags of £6.
Well, actually, it was a little bit more than that. I was watching the game live, actually. I was, there was an incident earlier in the match where Marlon Samuels was bowling, West Indian Marlon Samuels, that is. This is that 2020 competition in Australia called the Big Bash, like the IPL in England, in India, if you're not aware of it. A lot of the foreign players, they do bring them in for this tournament, especially the 2020 specialists, of which Marlon Samuels from the West Indies is one. I think it was David Hussey was batting at the time, the younger brother of Michael Hussey, and he went to turn for a second run, and Samuels was standing at the non-strikers end, having just bowled the delivery, and he held him back when he was going for his run. Now that was duly noted by Shane Warne sitting on the sidelines, and when Samuels came out to bat, Warner was actually bowling at the time, funny enough. He had just dismissed, can't remember who it was. In comes Marlon Samuels, and Warne started on him. In fact, the whole team started. But few verbals. He answered with a few verbals. Anyway, then there was at the end of the over, Warner just went straight up to him and grabbed him by the shirt, pulled him, yelled at him in his face. The finger was there. The umpires had to be called in to try and calm the situation down. Anyway, 4 or 5 deliveries later, Warne was fielding in the covers. He picked the ball up. Samuels was keeping his bat in behind the crease. And Warne actually just underarm lobbed the ball into his side, into his ribs. And Samuels ended up throwing his cricket bat. And I mean, had it have caught Warner, it would have taken his head off. Absolutely taken his head off. So, of course, there was a few scenes there of going on. Fair enough, Shane Warne did provoke it. And about 3 or 4 deliveries later, Marlon Samuels got socked in the eye off a very quick short delivery at about 140 k's an hour, and he's now out of the Big Bash T20. So I think Warne's probably thinking it finished quite well for the Melbourne Renegades on that particular night.
I think justice prevailed.
But, listen, Shane Warne did that. I mean, neither of them should have been behaving like that on a cricket pitch. It's not the sort of behaviour.
You can't hold the batsman back. I mean,
well, of course you can't. It's cheating, isn't it? At the end of the day, and it's just not cricket.
Well, yeah, but you have to admire the way the Australians sort out these problems.
Yeah, love a bit of verbals, don't they? I mean, that's where sledging was born, wasn't it?
Well, they are. I mean, they are the king of the sledges, and I think certainly Shane Warne, was an absolute master himself. I mean, certainly quite a few come to mind. I don't know whether we can repeat many of them on air.
Well, one of them actually was involved Sean Pollock, and he was batting. Warner was batting at the time, and Sean Pollock bowled this delivery and went up to him and said, "Hey Warner, why are you so fat?" And Shane Warne happened to turn around to him and say, "Because every time I make love to your wife, she gives me a chocolate biscuit." But obviously not those sort of words. So yeah, in fact, we should. I've got a great sledging book at home. Actually, we should bring that in and have a bit of a chat about that one night.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I know some people don't like, but I enjoy it. I think it's a good part of the game. I think it's all to do. I think you have to have a certain psychological toughness to play Test cricket, and if you can't take the sledging, then I don't think you've got what it takes, really.
Well, it's about getting in the batsman's mind, isn't it? Creating negativity, and as long as you don't overstep the mark. I mean, there's no need for personal attacks on anybody, but just to discourage the batsman slightly. I think it's an important part of the game, very much so. We're going to stay with cricket as well. We're going to stay with cricket down under.
Hold on. Before you start eulogising more about the South African cricket team,
because
can we just make note of the fact that England have won a one-day match against India, for the first time, I think, in 10 or 14 attempts.
We are, but we were working to theme, India. And we're not talking about South Africa, because South Africa aren't in Australia, Sri Lanka are. And we're talking about farewells to great cricketers, and Michael Hussey, England is there, they're just at the bottom of the list, that's all.
Mr. Cricket. If ever a nickname, I think, was totally undeserved and inappropriate, it was Mike Hussey, Mr. Cricket.
What, inappropriate?
Yeah.
But the guy, that was what his colleagues called him. The guy just lived and breathed cricket. He was the ultimate professional, this guy. Don't you think he was a great player?
I think he was an okay player. I don't think he'll go down as one of the greats.
Well, I mean, listen, let's look at his statistics first and foremost. He made his Test debut at the age of 30 in 2005, Rich. And the reason why he made his Test debut so late was because he had a wealth of talent that unfortunately were ahead of him in the pecking order.
Good enough.
No, he had the likes of... I mean, this was one of the greatest cricket sides of all time that he had to try and break into the team. He already had 17,000 first-class runs to his name when he made his Test debut at the age of 30. He finished with 19 Test hundreds, 6,235 runs at an average of 51.25. Now, if that's an average cricketer, I mean, that's a higher average than I think any current England cricketer except for probably Alistair Cook. That's a tremendous bit of cricket and a fantastic career.
Well, when you put it like that, Dominic, that is an average of 51. That's in tests.
It's 19 Test match hundreds. The last was actually in. Was it in his last Test match? No, he didn't get one in the last. He got one in the second Test against Sri Lanka. I mean,
okay. Well, maybe I'm letting my emotions run away with me because, you know, every time I'm down in Australia and visiting the family, all I hear is, you know, kind of like Mr. Cricket, you know, Hussey, Mr. Cricket, Mr. Cricket. And I'm thinking, what does this guy deserve? To, you know,
but it's just
like, you know, Mr. Football. Okay, who've we got? Mr. Football. Okay, and it's, you know, Leighton Baines of Everton, good player. But is he Mr. Football? No,
it's his whole approach to the game, and it was what his peers called him as a nickname, Mr. Cricket. The guy's always talking about it. He always has. You know, he knows everything about it. He's the first man on the pitch training, and he's the last to leave.
He's a one-dimensional, boring old sod.
Yeah, more than likely. Yeah.
Like,
I'd love to be a one-dimensional, boring sod with a Test average of 51.62.
Yeah, but look at Geoffrey Boycott. I mean, he's obsessed with cricket.
So no, he is a boring sod.
No, he's not.
Of course he is.
Oh, Geoffrey.
No, listen.
Geoffrey, I'm sorry.
Geoffrey Boycott was, in his day, one of the most unliked players. Michael Hussey, on the other hand, is very well liked amongst all cricketers all around the world.
No, I agree with you. He was fairly disliked, and he was a difficult old sod to deal with, that's for sure. I mean, he was in and out the England team for that very reason. But for somebody who lived and breathed cricket, Geoffrey Boycott.
No, he is Mr. Boring.
No, he is Mr. Cricket.
No, he's not Mr. Cricket. I mean, there's, Dickie Bird, Mr. Cricket.
No, he was an umpire.
Yeah, but he knows everything about cricket. What he's on? Yeah, he's a cricket umpire. Well, when you're going to be
but Geoffrey Boycott...
He's a cricket umpire. There you go.
Yeah, but Geoffrey Boycott, everyone said, you know, was equally obsessed. Anyway, let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on. Quick one there. Australia won the opening one-day international. They cleaned up Sri Lanka in the 3 Test match series by 3 victories to nothing. Farewell there to Michael Hussey. The one-day series began down under against Sri Lanka today, and it was a comprehensive win in the opening one day there. Australia scoring 305. Phil Hughes there making history, becoming the first Australian batsman to score a one-day 100 on his debut. So good stuff there from Phil Hughes. Sri Lanka skittled for 198. McKay there, the chief destroyer with ball in hand for Australia, 4 for 33. Defeat there for Sri Lanka by 107 runs. Now we can talk about England. What a tremendous victory. 2 losses in their warm-up matches in India on the subcontinent. Coming into the first one-day international, a thrilling encounter it was as well, Rich. England scoring 325 for 4, and India falling barely 9 runs short. Ian Bell, Alistair Cook giving them a great platform up front, as you would expect. And the chief bowler there was, surprisingly enough, Treadwell, taking 4 for 44. But great start to the one-day series for England.
Yeah, do you know something? When I watch Treadwell, I'm always amazed that he takes as many wickets as he does in one-day internationals because, you know, he bowls it pretty flat. He doesn't give it that much of a tweak. But for some reason, he does very well, Dom.
Yeah, I mean, he's not exactly the sort of person you would expect to see on an international 11 lineup, would you, really, Treadwell? I mean, surely there's better bowlers in England than him.
Well, I mean, Graham Swan, as you know, is probably one of the best off-spinners in the world at the moment. Yeah. But when it comes to the one-day format of the game, I think it's because Treadwell bowls a slightly sort of tighter line, really. And you know, sometimes, you know, Graham Swan... can drop it a bit short, but you know, Treadwell's length is always very good.
I think they're resting Swan at the moment, aren't they? If I'm correct in saying, I think he's been sent home for a well-earned rest.
Yeah, that's what radio presenters always have.
What, well-earned rest?
Yeah, they never have holidays.
I've never had a holiday.
Yeah, radio presenters only ever have well-earned rest.
Well-earned rest.
Or a well-earned break. Have you not noticed?
I know I haven't, no.
Listen.
Yeah.
When next time you're away on holiday, they won't say Dominic's away on holiday. They'll say Dominic's having a well-earned break.
Yeah, but I don't go on holiday, I told you.
Sorry?
You're not feeling sorry for me. I haven't had a holiday in ages.
Really?
Let's go from rugby to cricket, Rich, because there was a big announcement this week. England, their squad, I've actually put something in front of you there because I know that you normally have everything in your brain because you're so intelligent. But that's your England squad there for the Six Nations. Have you had a good chance to have a look at that? I mean, what is your thoughts on what you've seen for the England squad? I can see that there is one name that's in that squad.
Tom Croft.
Tom Croft, obviously. Well, I'm a big fan of Tom Croft.
Well, you only had to look at his try last year, Dominic, in one of the Six Nations matches, and for a lock to show the turn of speed that he showed when he raced up the wing.
I remember that
try. Great try, and also who can forget his towering performances in the last Lions tour?
Sure, absolutely.
Where he was undoubtedly, to my mind, the pick of the pack.
Well, let's just go through this list here very quickly and see who the danger men are going to be, who you expect to see in your starting 50. You've got Callum Clark, Alex Corbicero, who's come along in leaps and bounds, Dan Coyle, Tom Croft, who we've just been talking about, Dylan Hartley. I'm a big fan of Dylan Hartley. James Haskell, for me, doesn't play enough for England. Tom Johnson, Joe Launchbury, Courtney Laws. Great to see Courtney Laws back in. He's struggled a lot in recent times because of injury. Young man, tremendous athlete as well in the line-out. That's a great call. Joe Marler, Ben Morgan, Jeff Parling, Chris Robshaw, Mako Vanipola, Thomas Waldron, David Wilson, Tom Wood, Tom Youngs, Chris Ashton, back to try-scoring form in the Autumn Internationals, Bradley Barrett, who seems to have cemented his place in the centre there, Mike Brown, Freddie Burns. Now, that's the name I was talking about. We're going to come back to him now. Danny Kerr, scrum half there, Lee Dixon, Owen Farrell, Toby Flood. Why on earth he's still in that squad, I have no idea. Good to see Ben Foden back in there at number 15. He's the real attacking option for them, although Alex Good filled that role in the Autumn Internationals. That's Alex Good from Saracens, very effectively as well. I don't think Ben Foden's going to walk straight back into the starting 15 with Alex Good there. Jonathan Joseph, David Strettle, Manu Tulagi, Billy Twelvetrees, and Ben Youngs. Let's go back to that man, Freddie Burns. This is the one that you keep going on about, Rich.
Well, he really is. He's one of the most... I know that Cipriani's star has fallen considerably, but, he is... Freddie Burns, I think, is one of the other, outside halves that, has that sort of creativity. And through that has the ability to unlock defences in a way that... I don't think that that young Farrell does, though I do believe he's a very, very accomplished player. And to me, it just shows that there is a huge amount of strength in English rugby at the moment.
Looking at that squad, I agree with you completely.
Because then, of course, you've got young George Ford in the wings, who I think has been selected for the Saxons.
I can tell you right now.
I'm pretty sure he has.
Yeah, tremendous young player.
And so when you look at some of the talent that's coming through, and also, looking at the
George Ford is in the Saxons team,
and looking at the pack as well. One player who's really impressed me since he made his debut is Ben Morgan at number 8. And a really strong, powerful running number 8 is what I think the English pack have needed for some time. And also Joe Launchbury again. And what's interesting is that he's already being talked about as a shoo-in for the Lions. And such a young player, I think he's only 21, 22, Launchbury.
Looking at that squad, looking at the way England performed in the Autumn Internationals, very well for me, especially that last result against the All Blacks. Looking at the names that have come back into the squad that would have featured in the Autumn Internationals, that would have ordinarily featured in the starting 15 but couldn't because of injury. Looking at France and their performance as well over the Autumn Internationals under Philippe Saint-André, former French winger. They performed very well in the Autumn Internationals. I think they won all of their matches. Who do you think is going to start? Looking at that squad, do you think England start as favourites?
I think they do, Dominic. I really do. And especially, a lot of people had much higher hopes for Wales as well. But their performance really tailed off in the Autumn Internationals, and they've lost a lot of key players through injury. And so I think that really it is going to be between England and France. this Six Nations?
Well, not long now before the Six Nations begins. Of course, we will be covering that. The rugby does continue this weekend, and for the first time in 2013, the group stages of the Heineken Cup resumes this weekend, and Harlequins, Clermont Auvergne and Toulon, the three undefeated teams so far in the group stages, can all advance to the quarterfinals of the Heineken Cup this weekend. A couple of select fixtures for you to...
Sorry, just one point, just saying with rugby that I was pleased about. I think it was, is it Fourie, the South African-born player who played 8 times for England?
Fourie from Saracens, actually. I think he's Namibian, isn't he?
Is he?
No, actually, I know the Fourie. Yeah, he comes from the north of Gauteng, as they call it now, the former Transvaal. Yeah.
Yeah. So and he was going to be deported because he can't play anymore. He had a sort of a career-ending injury, and as a result of that, he was going to be deported back to South Africa. And English rugby fans were absolutely disgusted by this. You know, here is somebody who's played for England.
That's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous.
Absolutely ridiculous. And but I'm very glad to see that decision has been reversed.
Well, we were talking about Heineken Cup rugby and that sort of deportation passport situation. Did you hear one of the players, I think from Glasgow, couldn't travel with his team this weekend to play in the Heineken Cup because his puppy chewed up his passport? Did you? How cool is that? Seriously, that's not even a joke. That's what happened.
That's like, have you got your homework, Billy? No, the dog ate my homework.
The dog ate my homework. Yeah, sorry, no, I'm too scared to face Clermont Auvergne, the French champions, that my puppy chewed up my passport. But anyway, going back to the rugby this weekend, the Heineken Cup, round 5 of the Heineken Cup group stages. Northampton Saints are at home to Castres. That's this evening. Sale Sharks host Montpellier. Ulster host Glasgow Warriors. On Saturday, you got Toulon. That's Johnny Wilkinson's Toulon. A welcome Cardiff Blues. Harlequins have Connaught in town. Zeb Biarritz. Racing Metro versus Saracens. Leinster versus Scarlets. That's a must-win game for Leinster. Clermont Auvergne versus Exeter, having a very good season to date. Edinburgh versus Munster. Ospreys versus Leicester Tigers. And Toulouse versus Treviso. Those are your Heineken Cup fixtures for this weekend. Six Nations, not too far around the corner. The golf has also started, Rich. Everything is now starting. It's great. You've got the tennis, the golf. Dustin Johnson opened up his season on the PGA Tour by carding a 5 under 68 for a 4-shot victory at the Hyundai Tournament of Champions. That was delayed due to extremely bad weather. I don't know if you picked up on any of that.
No, I didn't, Dom.
No, you didn't. Okay. Couldn't you have just answered me in one word?
No.
Huh?
No.
Anyway, good start to the season there. Defending champion Steve Stricker coming in second, 4 shots adrift. So good start to the campaign there on the PG Tour for Dustin Johnson. And the European Tour has begun as well in South Africa. The Volvo Tournament of Champions in Durban. And local favourite there, Louis Oosthuizen, former Open champion, is leading and 12 under par after the second round. Followed by Tonchai JD, one of Asia's leading golfers, on 11 under. Scott Jameson on 11 under. Jeev Mika Singh on 5 under. Thomas Bjorn on 5 under. And Paul Lurry also threatening there, coming into the weekend on 5 under. But Louis Oosthuizen knows the conditions very well. For me, it looks like he could quite possibly finish that off, Rich.
Well, he's a great player, Louis Oosthuizen, and great smile and beautiful swing as well. Very sort of languid.
Did you say great smile?
Great swing.
I thought you said...
Yeah, he has got a great smile. He's always grinning, isn't he? Louis Oosthuizen.
Well, you would grin as well if you kept on winning like he did.
Yeah, he's one of these players. I mean, whenever you see him, he always looks happy on the golf course.
Well, you would do if you had a swing like that. I've seen your swing. That's why you keep frowning all the time.
Yeah, but I'm still happy on the golf course, Dom.
Yeah, well, I know the reason for that. Tennis, the tennis season, those nonchalant tournaments that you were talking about, we have to talk about because these are very
insignificant.
Insignificant.
The listeners don't care about.
That you don't care about. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to...
99.9% of the listeners do not care about inconsequential tennis tournaments.
If you do, give us a ring in the studio. If you care about them, give us a ring in the studio, please. 951-036-026, and either tell me that it's inconsequential or you don't care about it, or tell Richard to keep his mouth shut.
They don't really care about it.
Well, I do. Well,
I mean, when it comes to the Australian Open, then, of course, then everyone's interested.
Well, that 0.01% of a person that is sitting out... Here we go. There we go. Let's I'm going to get you in now. Just bear with us a sec. Good evening. You're live on Talk Radio Europe and the Friday Night Sports Bar. Hi.
Yeah, I don't care about any tennis anyway.
Yeah.
And what do you care about?
Well said.
Sorry, and your name is?
Oh, don't worry. I just don't like tennis.
I'm going to talk for the next half an hour about tennis.
You see, I'm right, Don.
Thanks for your call there.
Don't like tennis, apart from when it comes to the big tournaments.
Well, the big tournament starting. Okay, well, I won't bore you to death. Andy Murray won in Brisbane. Okay, great warm up for him last week.
Enough said.
Agnieszka Radwanska's won her second tournament of the year this morning in Auckland. She's one of the favourites alongside Serena Williams and Victoria Azarenka going into the Australian Open as well. Serena Williams won in Brisbane alongside Andy Murray, as already mentioned, so she goes in looking in great form. That was her 47th tournament victory. Richard Gasquet won in Doha, defeating Nikolai Davydenko, so good stuff there from him. David Ferreira's in the final tomorrow in Auckland against Philip Kohlschreiber. But let's just have a look at the men's draw and the ladies' draw for the Australian Open, which begins on Monday. Novak Djokovic opens up his campaign against Henry Paul Mathieu. David Goffin faces the number 22 seed from Spain, Fernando Verdasco. Thomas Berdych is against Michael Rousseau. David Ferreira opens up his campaign against Olivier Rochus. Leighton Hewitt, remember him, former world number 1. He's still around. He takes on Janko Tipsarevic, who's the number 8 seed, a recent winner in Chennai. Juan Martín del Potro is facing an unknown qualifier at this stage. Maybe he should face you. Andy Murray opens up. It's a very tricky first-round match for Andy Murray against Robin Haas.
I just realised why you like talking about these tennis tournaments.
Why is that?
So you can show off how good you are pronouncing these totally unpronounceable foreign names.
Well, you wait for the next one.
I'll tell you something. That is an achievement in itself. Just say some of those names again.
Benoit Poirier versus Roger Federer. That's going to be. I'll tell you what. That's going to be a tricky first-round match. This young Frenchman, Benoit Poirier, he's just got to the semi-finals recently in Chennai. Roger Federer is his idol. He's moving up the rankings very quickly. That could potentially be a very difficult fixture for Roger Federer in the opener. Victoria Azarenka from Belarus, the world number 1. She's the firm favourite against Monica Niculescu. That's not bad, eh? Monica Niculescu. Okay. She's had a pretty good run recently in Auckland. Serena Williams against Galvotas Hall from Romania. Li Na versus... Oh, I'm not going to bother with that one. That's going to be a little bit... Li Na. Li Na from China, former French Open winner from 2011. 2011.
Really?
Yeah, number 6, 7 in the world, yeah.
China, they've won the French Open.
Yeah.
Oh, good grief.
This is a sports show, you should know that. And Maria Sharapova opens up her campaign against Olga Puchkova. And the Australian Open, that begins on Monday. I'm looking forward to it. Clearly, you are not.
No.
No? Okay.
I might tune into the final last 5 minutes if Andy Murray gets in.
I mean, but that's bias. Why even bother?
Oh, yeah. Well, let's just... Because it really is. I just find it one of the most stultifyingly boring games.
Well, no more tennis. So any of those listeners out there that don't like tennis, like the gentleman that called us, don't worry, you don't have to listen to it anymore. We're going to go to a commercial break and we'll see the other side of these messages.
Passes it to Tomato. Tomato dribbles it past Mozzarella and loses it to Beefy. Beefy runs with it, goes on the counter-attack of Beefy and Beefy scores and the crowd goes wild.
It's the Friday Sports Bar on Talk Radio Europe with Dom Aldworth.
Well, good evening and welcome back to the show. And just so you know, during the commercial break, the phones did not stop ringing from all those fans of the Friday Night Sports Bar on Talk Radio Europe, saying, and one in particular asked me to say to you, Richard, in fact, I can't repeat the language because the language guided towards you was horrendous. I like MotoGP, Formula 1 and tennis, so tell Richard to go and beep, 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 beep. And that was repeated by several phone calls that I couldn't take all of them, so thanks for calling up. I assume you all wanted to say the same thing to Richard.
There was only the one.
No, there were
several.
Well, why was the light flashing? Were you sitting there turning the light bulb on and off? Pretending
all the others were saying, yeah, we agree with Richard.
This is a sports show, and we've got to talk about absolute... Here we go, we've got another caller on the line. Is this going to be... I keep playing with the wrong mouse here. Yeah. Let's get you on there. Good evening. You're live on Talk Radio Europe and the Friday Night Sports Bar.
Hello. A bit less football and a bit more tennis, please, Dom.
There you go. And sorry, your name is?
Sharon.
Hi, Sharon. How you doing? You okay?
Hi, Sharon.
Fine, thanks. I cannot stand... I tell you what, it isn't football. It isn't that I can't stand football. I can't stand the way it dominates sport. Why does football have to dominate sport all the time? It's just wrong.
And Sharon, isn't it great? It's 40 minutes into the show and we haven't mentioned football once.
Brilliant. Thank you. Keep going.
Cheers, Sharon.
Don't forget to play
Even
with
though I
the
don't
right
like tennis.
Thanks a lot.
What else do you like, Sharon?
Tennis, rugby, that's about it, really. I do swim a lot myself. Richard just shouted darts. I don't like darts. Yeah, I do swim a lot myself, but rugby and tennis.
Fantastic. Well, we'll be delivering as much of that as we possibly can.
Lots of rugby coming up over the next few weeks as well.
Lovely. Thanks a lot. Take
Cheers,
care.
Sharon. Enjoy the Australian
Open.
Open.
Bye.
So what have you got to say to that, Richard?
What?
Keep your calls coming, please.
Yeah.
Keep your calls coming.
Well, Sharon's a great contributor. I love her when she takes on Barry Nathan on the Tuesday morning phone-in show.
Okay, we've got another caller in here, and I certainly hope... Good evening. You're live on Talk Radio Europe and the Friday Night Sports Bar.
Good evening, Don. Good evening, Richard. It's Pompey Gary here.
How you doing, Gary?
Hi, mate. How are you?
Just to let you know, Sharon is the biggest Arsenal fan, and at least once a month she's at the Emirates. So don't believe what she said.
I thought you were...
Oh, Sharon, if this is true, can you give us a ring back in the studio? Gary, you stay on the line.
I find it very surprising that she's not in the kitchen doing some cooking at the moment. So what's she doing listening to this? I don't know.
Oh, I tell you what.
You later.
Cheers,
Bye-bye.
mate. Take it easy. Well, we like a little bit of that, actually. Hey? Well, Sharon is an Arsenal fan. Well, that's okay. I like Arsenal. Arsenal's a great team.
My son's an Arsenal fan.
Arsene Wenger, talking about Arsenal fans today, actually, Arsene Wenger, apparently the ticket prices at the Emirates Stadium are very, very high. And apparently about 1,000 Manchester City fans have refused to travel for Sunday's game because of the ticket prices. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I did. But I know one thing, that the food at the Emirates is meant to be really good, all the food concessions.
Oh, I've got to go there then. I've got to go.
Yeah.
I'll go just for the food.
And the seats are meant to be fantastic.
Are they really?
Yeah, you get more space and everything.
So you don't have to take your own cushion with you, no?
Not at all.
No? Excellent. Well, let's talk... Sharon, sorry, but we are going to talk a little bit about football. Plaudits very much so to Lionel Messi this weekend for his Ballon d'Or award. Yet again, there was only one person that was ever going to win that, despite the fact that Ronaldo and...
Well, you say that. In many ways, I think Ronaldo was more influential for his club than Messi was.
We've got a... why'd you say that? How can you say that?
Because what did look at what Real Madrid won last year.
Good evening. You're live on Talk Radio Europe in the Friday Night Sports Bar.
Good evening. Happy New Year to you all. This is Steve from Torremolinos.
And the same to you, Steve.
I'd just like to say that the start of the show was absolutely fascinating, the way you was talking about the cricket. I do remember some of the games, but listening to you makes the show worthwhile. It's a shame that your Tottenham fan ain't there to go on about how good their position is. And hello, Sharon. I'm sure you're listening, but football... It's the world's game, mate. It's a beautiful game, so you're just going to have to like it, even if you're a secret Arsenal fan.
Let's talk, Steve, while you're here. Let's talk Liverpool, because you guys are involved in a pretty big match this weekend.
Yes, I'm looking forward to us losing that one. At the moment now, I think we're a long way from getting anywhere. I think it's going to take a couple more years. He's gone out and rushed and bought a striker who's still not proven. Sorry to say that, but we're still lacking class players. At the moment now, the problem with Liverpool is that I think he's afraid to take in people and get rid of rubbish that we've got at the moment. If we've got no money, we have 50 players on our squad, and I'm sure that we could sell 15 of them and get enough money to buy 2 or 3 proper players.
Well, the thing is,
my only point there. And
Steve, you've yet to beat a club higher above you in the table this year, and that in itself is quite a worrying statistic. However,
Exactly.
I mean, I keep saying this, most weeks, I think Liverpool are starting to play some really nice football, and I think that you've just got to be patient. I mean, you really have, and I think that you've got to really look at Liverpool as a work in progress, and in 12 months' time, I think then will be the time to judge the team. But I'm
not going to disagree with what you say, but the fact is that when you watch a game, it's not the first 2/3 of the pitch that are important when you play football, it's the last third. And that's where I think my argument speaks volumes. Also, can I have a shout out that I still think I'm right about Benitez. He's gone in again, he's had a team that's actually won the Europeans, and he's gone out and bought another striker under the understanding that he can fix Torres. So I've been laughing up until December so far. I want to continue to laugh for the rest of the year because he's absolutely rubbish. And as to whether or not Liverpool are going to do well, we have too many poor players. And I think that Stevie G's gone over the top. I'll leave it like that so other people can phone up.
Just stay on the line there, Steve, please, for 1 minute, if you may. You're talking about a striker that they bought that still is unproven. I completely agree with you on that. But it's $7 million in the deal that Benitez did for, I think it was $7 million, for Demba Ba. That's the sort of guy you really wanted in Liverpool, wasn't it?
Exactly. And my point is that they keep going on about how great Brendan Rodgers is, but the fact is we've only bought 1 striker. We should have at least 3 on the bench. The Italian who's come back who was injured, unproven and young, and I don't think he's of a sufficient quantity to play for Liverpool, but Brendan Rodgers likes him. But the fact is, if you have an injury now, we're down to one striker again. I don't know any sensible club in the Premier that has two strikers. Most usually have three, and Man United have four. And at this moment in time, I keep hearing about how astute our manager is, but he still has time to fix it, but he's only brought two strikers. We've only got two strikers. And the third one, I can't wait 4 years.
Steve, there's still another 3 weeks.
So, again, what can I say?
There's still another 3 weeks until the transfer window closes.
Well, yes, I don't disagree, but the fact was that Demba Ba wouldn't have cost a lot of money, and I think we should have been in there for him immediately. We should have bitten off the hand to take the player. And at the moment now, Bent, even though he's at the end of his career, we could have considered him, or look at the two players that are going to be leaving Chelsea soon, one of them being Frank Lampard, because, I mean, we won't have to pay a lot for him. I think they're going to get rid of him. I think that the owner's got so much money he can afford to let him go, and it's just a salary thing, and he could train the younger players or help the younger players come through. And as I said, Brendan Rodgers might be okay, but he's not showing enough astuteness for me personally. It's only my opinion, but I'm still not convinced about him.
I think you've got to give him time, and then in time I think Liverpool will be back where they deserve to be, because without Liverpool, I think in the top four, English football is a lot poorer. That's for sure.
Yeah, okay, well, I'll say one last thing then.
Well, because Liverpool are one of the aristocrats there of British football, of English football, and to my mind, I mean, if they're not there, it does devalue the Championship, the Premiership.
Yeah, listen, I don't disagree with what you say, but I'll come back to running the business. You don't give somebody who's rubbish 5 years to work things out. And at the moment now, all managers want time, but they get paid a lot of money, and they realise what they go into when they become a manager of a team. And at this moment in time, yes, he's done something, but it's the things he's not doing is more what bothers me. So, Steve, I'll leave the view open to other people.
Steve, just stay on the line. We've got another caller on the line there. Good evening. You're live on Talk Radio Europe.
Yeah, you hear of all these managers. They say they want to sign so-and-so and so-and-so, but do these players actually want to play for the teams?
Sorry, your name is? Can you say that again?
You know, you hear of managers. They say, "Oh, we want to sign so-and-so and so-and-so," but do these players actually want to play for, like, Liverpool or Arsenal or whatever? You know, do they actually want to go to these teams, no matter how much money they throw at them?
Well, I think that they want to go to a team where they've got a chance of winning. I mean, why wouldn't they want to go to that team as opposed to any other?
Yeah.
So if they want to win something, Liverpool are not going to win anything this year. And as far as I can see now, they're not going to qualify for the Champions League this year, and possibly not even next year. And at the moment now, with Tottenham, I'm sorry to use that word because I apologise to all the listeners out there, but with Tottenham now coming strong and adding another member to fighting for the top four places, it's become even more difficult. And at the moment they're signing one player at Liverpool is not enough.
I think what you hear, you say, "Oh, this player's going to go there, this player's going to go." I think it's the agents talking. It's not the players that want to actually go to these clubs.
Well, I think that's a very good point about the agents, and I mean, certainly, I mean, there's been a lot of comments by managers recently about the conduct of agents, you know, and the way that they deliberately unsettle players and in turn unsettle a squad, you know, when very often the player doesn't even want to move.
I understand what the caller's mentioned there, but one of the things that he's not realising is he may not want to play for a manager, but the fact is when you're on 40, 50, 80 grand a week, I mean, it's supposed to be professional pride, I would assume, and even if you don't manage to play for your country, it's a good selling point for if you want to move on. And I've got no sympathy with players any longer, simply because of the fact that they've got the Bosman ruling behind them, and it's just about the money now.
Personally, I don't think the wage packet is all and be end all. I think the love of the club is what comes first. It should do.
Guys, we've actually got another caller on the line. I'm not too sure if we can bring in as many as this, but if you're on the line there, you're on live on Talk Radio Europe. Can you hear us?
No,
I'm sorry.
No, but that's a very Dom. I think that that last caller has made a very interesting point, and this is something that I suppose we're going to be seeing less and less of, which is the loyalty of one player of a player to his club, a career-long loyalty. And it's there's very few.
Sorry, Rich. The last caller. You're on the air. You've joined the conference call, so you're most welcome to make your point.
Yeah, very good evening, guys. How are you all?
Hi. Good evening to you. Your name is sorry.
It's Dean from Torremolinos.
How are you doing, Dean?
It's not, yeah, brilliant. Not so bad. It's always nice to hear Steve saying what he's saying about Liverpool and all that, but let's be perfectly fair, no team has the right of passage to be the top of the league or to be in the Champions League or in Europe. No team has that, and that comes from a lowly Ipswich Town fan who doesn't get anywhere and win nothing.
Excuse me, that's butt in there. I don't necessarily say that we have to win a Champions League any longer or win the league. All I expect is that if you're paid 50 grand a week, you can pass the ball 5 yards and at least make an effort of either entertaining your fans or playing sensible football. Up until now, I don't think that we do that. I do listen to the Liverpool forums. I'm on those as well, and I'm not the only person of that opinion. I don't believe at this moment that a club with that history should be playing as poorly as we are. And at the moment now, when you're bringing in young players like they're doing, that's all well and good, but you're looking at 4 years down the road, and you have to exist today in 2013.
Gentlemen, Dean, Steve, I'm very, very sorry. I have to cut you short. We've got one more commercial break we need to get through before the top of the hour. Thanks very much indeed for your opinions, and thanks so much for listening into the show. It's great to have you guys calling in. Thanks so much.
No worries.
It's the Friday Sports Bar with Dom Ordworth on Talk Radio Europe.
Well, welcome back to the last part of the show. Richard, thank you very much indeed for the callers there, Dean, Steve, everybody that's called during the show, but especially the last guys. You're looking at that's a lovely dramatic NFL new music that we have to bring in there. But thanks, guys, for your call. Much appreciated. Your opinions are as well. NFL playoffs. Huh?
Can't we talk about my football team?
No, we don't have enough time. Look, well, it's only Wolverhampton, isn't it? Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll give you 2 seconds at the end of the show. Let's quickly just rattle through what happened last week there, Rich. In the playoffs, the Baltimore Ravens, Green Bay Packers, Seattle Seahawks and the Texans all went through. That was the wild card weekend. This weekend, the Ravens are up against Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos. The Green Bay Packers against San Francisco 49ers. The Seahawks against the Atlanta Falcons, who went 11-0 actually at one stage of the season before their first loss. And then the Houston Texans face Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. Great weekend of NFL, and even a better weekend to look forward to this weekend, Rich.
Yeah, there's some really, really good matchups. I mean, for me, the match of the weekend has to be the 49ers versus the Packers. And a lot is going to depend on whether Kaepernick can perform, because certainly, I mean, in past years, I mean, we talked about this, the 49ers, had an amazing offense this season. It's been their defense. But Kaepernick, they have a lot of very, very clever players, the 49ers. And I think against the Packers, of course, they do have home field advantage. They are at Candlestick Park.
Two teams with great history in Super Bowls as well. The 49ers led by Dan Marino all those years ago.
No, they weren't.
So not Dan Marino, you have Miami Dolphins. Sorry, what am I talking about? Dan Marino was at the Miami Dolphins. Joe Montana, beg your pardon. Steve Young afterwards. Jerry Rice, the wide receiver. So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sorry about that. 4 Super Bowls. 4 Super Bowls. Green Bay Packers, some great recent history in the Super Bowl as well. Aaron Rodgers having a great game last week at quarterback. You're talking about Kaepernick. Kaepernick stood in for Alex Smith earlier, halfway through this season, actually. He'd never made an NFL start for the 49ers, but he really has played particularly well in the home straight for the 49ers. Frank Gore as well, from the running back point of view, is going to be crucial. I mean, this guy is massive on a big day for the 49ers.
He is, and, and the thing is, he does, to a certain extent, carry the weight of their, offensive running threat as well. And one could say that they have become a little too reliant on him, in the same way that I think the Seahawks with Marshawn Lawn
Marshawn Lynch.
Marshawn Lynch.
Man of the match last week for his performance against the Redskins as well. I think rushing for over 100 yards as well. Big performance for him. And Frank Gore is very much of that mould.
Very much so. And, you have to say with either of those teams, if Lynch doesn't perform for the Seahawks, they're going to be in trouble. Likewise with Gore for the 49ers.
Absolutely. Russell Wilson outclassing RG3, Robert Griffin III, due to injury, mainly.
You'd have to say it was injury. And
the Redskins really came out of the blocks flying last week, but the Seahawks just proved too strong. But I think mainly it was the back of the injury.
14 up, I think, by the second quarter.
In the first quarter.
In the first quarter, sorry, yeah. And you'd have to say, I didn't think there was any way back from the Seahawks, who I had tipped to win that one on the road. And unusual for the Seahawks, but they have a terrible record in the playoffs on the road.
They do. They have a terrible record. They've got a great home record all season this year. The Houston Texans got through last week against the Bengals. They face now Tom Brady's New England Patriots. Tom Brady, a real class performer.
Well, of course, lost the last couple of Super Bowls, the New England Patriots, and Brady will be wanting to go all the way and suddenly go out on a high note because both those Super Bowl losses